Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. I get asked to review games or comment on other games a lot, and I've said I'm not going to do that. But today I thought I'd do something a little silly, and I mean this lightheartedly. But I'm going to talk about times I've been playing games, or other RPGs, where I get bored. I'm going to talk about I'm not going to talk about particular games. I'm going to talk about the things that I've seen in games where they're reusing settings or stories or mechanics or characters in a way that I've seen so many times before. And remember, it'll remind me of a game I played 40 years ago. But I'm just sitting there playing the game, and then I'm just like, I'm bored now. Kind of like this.
Bored now. I'm having a terrible night.
Well, maybe not as bad as Dark Willow, but still, I keep seeing certain tropes happen over and over again. So I'm just going to talk about those, and here they are in absolutely no particular order. This is not ranked, and in many cases, I wasn't thinking of a particular game because there's been many, many, many games that have done this. I'm talking about commonly reused RPG tropes. So the first one, saving the world. Again. Oh God, demons are invading. Oh no, it's aliens. Oh no, the dark god is coming and everybody will die. Oh, there's a plague and everybody's going to die. I get why RPGs do this, but I kind of like more scoped problems. Problems, I could at least say maybe problems caused by humans or by other humans or something like that. Just something that the player can see, acknowledge, get the scope of, and deal with without having to become, a living god themselves. Another one is villain monologues. You know what I'm talking about. It's when villains have to go on for minutes talking about the stuff they're going to do or the stuff they did and the stuff they're going to do to you or why they did it. And I'm like, okay, why don't you show it and not say it? Why don't you do it and not say it? Don't explain it to me, do it. Similar to that, sarcastic NPCs. Oh my God. So original, so edgy. Seriously, if that's your idea as a narrative designer of making an interesting character, they're really sarcastic. That's new. It has been done to death. And let me just tell you, I complained once to a designer and said, you know what you're doing is super cliche. And he went, well, sometimes cliches work. This was after ripping apart everyone else's work for being cliche. So, yeah, before things were tropes, they were called cliche. Other things I see in RPGs are things like an open world, just for the sake of having an open world. So you can say, we have an open world. Yeah, and there's nothing there. There's no real reason to explore it. There's no real discovery to be made in it. It's just kilometers of nothingness. So I usually find that happens because somebody had a great idea for an RPG that would have worked great with zones or hub and spoke or something like that. But it makes think somebody on the team or the publisher came along and said, well, you got to have an open world. That's the thing. So like, okay, there's an open world. It's boring. Similarly, complex systems, like complex system mechanics, just for the sake of being complexity, you're not getting anything really cool out of it, something new and novel. You just throw a lot at the player. And maybe you're doing it because let's throw a lot of things at them and hope something sticks. These are things where I find myself, if I have to go online to figure out how to spend my level up point, or I have to use a spreadsheet to figure it out, at that point I'm usually like, I'm done. Leveling up should be fun and imaginative, and I should have an idea for a character and I see how to do it in your system, not well, I'm here and I want to be here, and I'm gonna have to build along here and then unlock this and then build along here. At that point, I'm like, I'm done. I'm bored now. Another one that gets me is fake evil. These are games that say they have evil paths, and technically they do. But usually, what happens if you try to follow the evil path, the game stops. It's like, okay, you could everyone, game over. Or, okay, you released the plague, game over. So they can say on the back of the box or in a review, hey, we got an evil path. Not really. I've often seen RPGs go a slightly different way where you can pick evil, but then it really shuts down a lot of parts of the game. Quests go away. NPCs don't talk to you much anymore. You're just attacked everywhere. Yeah, you can still finish the game, probably by killing everyone. And so technically they can go, oh yeah, there's an evil path. But it's really not. It's certainly not the same as being good. And the game pushes you to being good. And then one last thing I thought of is I've actually played games where it's fake evil in the sense of you can dress evil, maybe act evil, but you're doing the exact same path that the good characters are doing. You just, look goth or something, and people go, oh, look at you. But you're still doing exactly the same thing. It's why in Temple of Elemental Evil, at the end, we threw a lot of endings in there that I found unusual. Like, how many games does you go up against the bad guy and go, I'd like to work for you? Zagtmoy, I agree with your literature and I would like to join your club. Or worse, you show up and go, you call this evil? I'm evil. You join me. And you can back it up and it can happen. That's playing evil. Not, well, I've been bad, but I'm still going to kill the bad guy because I don't like them. Then there's a whole host of things that I've seen. RPGs with pure linear stories. RPGs with pre-made characters that you have to play that come with their own name and backstory. Sometimes they even come with their own stats. Sometimes you can change them, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can change them as you play, but you start exactly the same as everyone else. And then RPGs with no real choice or consequence. They either don't have any or they have the fake one, like I talk about fake evil. They have things you can choose, but it changes nothing. Like it's just a different line in dialogue that leads to the exact same quest to be done the exact same way. So it's like window dressing choice and consequence. And people often ask me, well, do you consider them not to be RPGs? To me, an RPG is a continuum. And every time you do that, if you make a linear story, you're a little less of an RPG to me. Pre-made main character, a little less. No choice and consequence, a little less. And eventually you will get towards the other side of the spectrum, which is you're pretty much having me play an adventure game. The flip side of that, though, is combat, and more combat, where you get an RPG, but it's really a combat simulator with some attributes or skills like attached onto it. I know some people thought about that Temple. No, that was just me being a bad narrative designer. But when I play a game that doesn't really even try to do any of that, it's just, here's a bunch of combat. You will have fun. Oh, and it's an RPG because you can buy skills and they change the way you do combat. To me, if I don't have a choice in how to play, if the game isn't going to react to me, you're far less of an RPG than you think you are. Speaking of combat choreography, or combat, let me talk about combat choreography because I know I mentioned that about World of Warcraft, and people are like, no, raids are much harder than that. Hey, I watched the videos where the guy's going dot, dot, okay, stop dots. It's very coordinated. You're basically doing ballet, combat ballet. Hit, duck, wait, jump, hit. At this point, I would rather go play Dance Dance Revolution. It's or some rhythmic game. There was a really cool game that came out recently where you did fight on the beat, and I thought that was a cool twist and a cool thing to do. But they didn't go, hey, look, we're the latest hot cool RPG. They said, hey, look, here's a fun game to play. Like that. It's sort of like how you portray yourself. If you pretend to be one thing and then you really do another. I've talked about lore dumps in other games, but having loads of lore dumps in your game, whether it's people talking or just waves of text coming by periodically, I really am tired of that. We had to do it in the 80s, and then in the 90s we could do it less and less. By the time we hit the noughts, there's really no excuse for doing that anymore. I'm very much in the show, don't tell camp. Show what the world's like, don't tell me. Show me how bad the people's lives are, don't tell me. Show me the effects of this evil, don't tell me. So if I want to know more about it, sure, if you have an NPC that can explain it to me, or you have books I can read that I can choose to read, great. If I have to read them, now I don't mind if you want to say, here's some stuff and the lore really will help you figure out how crafting works. Okay, but I can ignore crafting. As long as I can ignore crafting, then I can ignore your lore. I'm good. Similarly, there's a couple things about the player character I'm getting tired of. I've said this several times to several different narrative designers over the decades. Stop it with the amnesia. I've gotten so much pushback on this because amnesia is such a useful trope. You know, it explains why the player doesn't know anything and the character doesn't know anything. So over time, I changed that to, okay, you get one use. You get one use of amnesia in your career. But if you use it a second time, I will roast you. Because it's just way overused. And what it's especially overused with is, I'm an overpowered godlike character. Oh, but I have amnesia. So I got to relearn all my god stuff. So by the end of the game, I'm a god. And then let's contrast this with another really common player trope, which is, I'm young and I'm so misunderstood by everybody, but I'm oh so special. Ugh. There's an entire class of RPGs that I tend to avoid. I avoided them when I was young. I'm avoiding them now that I'm old because it's this tiresome, nobody understands me, even though I'm super good looking and I have special powers, but I don't know if I want to use my special powers because, gee, that'll make me different and maybe I'll get teased. I'm done with that. I am so over that trope. Please think of something else. Think of it as being, I don't mind if it's, young person who has a power that they can't control. And now they've done some awful things, but it wasn't their fault. That's different than, oh, nobody in school likes me and I get bullied by the mean clique, but they don't know that I'm telekinetic. It's, okay, Stephen King did that in the 70s. We're done with that. But see, this is where I start to get all worked up. And I meant for this to be silly. So I'm going to stop there. There's my list of tropes. I hope designers who are watching this get the right point I'm making, which is there's so much stuff you can be doing. You don't need to do these things again. And if you do them, find a twist, find something. It's like I said, every one of my games, I have something I can point to. It's usually a mechanic. Sometimes it's setting or story that I can go, that's different. I haven't seen that done that way. If you don't have one of those, if you're just like you collected all the top 10 things you loved from your favorite games and glued them together, that's when I'm playing your game and I'm going, I'm starting to get a little bored. I've played this before. I've seen it before. I don't see anything new. I'm moving on. So I hope this video makes you think of those things in a new light.